Thanks for joining us. Kay Murray and LME are here. We're going to be hearing from Steve McManaman in just a moment. Dalen will be joining us to give us an interesting insight into the top four race, and Shaka Hislop is going to be with us as well. We're hoping to hear from Mark Ogden after the game. He was at it today, and what a game it was. It feels like it was so pivotal a day in the title race today, LME. Arsenal with a 3-2 win over Manchester United, 5 points clear. They've got a game in hand as well. This was a massive day. Not only did we just see how resilient they are, the fact that they could fight back, we got to see that this is the team to beat. We got to see that this is the team to fear the most right now in the Premier League.
A huge victory, Kay Murray. Welcome, everybody. Listen, in the history of the Premier League and the history of football, of course, in Europe and England and beyond, there's always defining moments for a team chasing a title. If you go to the Premier League specifically, you have Sergio Aguero and Manchester City in that massive game against QPR. Manchester United would do it on the regular in the 90s. And this game, Kay, today, I felt was just like that. A symbolic, essential moment. Obviously, numerically speaking, it doesn't determine the Premier League for Arsenal, but it was a massive victory. Huge, just because United kept fighting back, right? It was 2-0 into the latter stages, and Arsenal at the Emirates under Miguel Arteta get 3 huge points. And to me, I know we're going to talk about it, but it's over. Arsenal winning the Premier League. Fantastic stuff.
Let's bring in Maka then, because he's been watching this one and we're trying to grab him before he has to go on his La Liga commentary. Maka, it's great to have you. You know what? I felt as though it was a little throwback of yesteryear, and we got to see clashes that we were used to seeing between these two sides in the 90s. But for you, how pivotal a day was this in the title race?
Well, I thought it was a huge day. Firstly, what I would say is that it was a fantastic game, and the two teams deserve a lot of credit. I mean, Arsenal were brilliant in the end to get that late victory. Manchester United, I thought, played their part, and they'll probably walk away thinking they at least deserved a draw. But it was a real big day, wasn't it? With Erling Haaland scoring a hat-trick, and then Manchester City jumping to within 2 points. Of course, Arsenal always had that couple of games in hand, but then to win the way they did in the last moment, it almost feels a lot better, doesn't it? A lot more joyous, a lot more celebratory when you score in the last minute of the game. But to ease away from City again, and the way they're playing, and just harness all that confidence that they are having at the moment, I just thought it was a real big day. And it just shows that this Arsenal aren't just a team that play good football. They've got a real steely determination. They've got a great work ethic. And they look as if they're very much as a whole, don't they? As a one, you see them celebrating at the end. They look a very happy bunch. And it bodes well for Arsenal going forward.
Yeah, well, listen, to your point, Maka, steely determination, taking in mind that there's such a young squad. It's very, very impressive. I know that you were going somewhere with this commentary. I don't know what your predictions were overall in terms of who's going to win the Premier League title, but what are you thinking right now in terms of Arsenal? Can they do this? Obviously, there's still a lot of matches to be played, but what do you think is the determinant factor for them to finally, once again, win the Premier League?
Well, I think it's simple, Elamy, to be honest. They need to keep everybody fit. I mean, you need a little bit of luck when winning any cup competition, any championship. You need a bit of fortune. And if they keep the like of Erdegaard, if they keep, Partey, if they keep some of the defenders free from injury and on the pitch, and he continues to pick the same team and the same 11 week in, week out, there's a great possibility that they'll win the league. But as we've seen with Liverpool, as we've seen with Chelsea, as we've seen with Manchester City at times this year, there will become an occasion where you get 3 or 4 injuries, and it's how big their squad is to deal with those injuries. But if they stay fit and well, I mean, they're big favourites, aren't they? Because the way they are playing with their game in hand, you expect them to win that game in hand. And if they are 8 points clear, playing with the form that they are, and haven't only lost one game, yes, they've got Manchester City to come 3 times in quick succession. We know that. And that'll be another yardstick for them. But when you're playing Manchester City, they must know that they only have to draw those games. So they can be a little bit more pragmatic in those particular games. But if they keep everybody fit, I think they've got a wonderful chance of lifting the Premier League.
Maka, we're going to bring in Mark Ogden, who was at the game today. But just while he is coming into the chat room here, I wanted to ask about Eddie Nketiah. Obviously brilliant today, what we've seen from him for Arsenal. What are your thoughts on him as a player?
Well, I think he showed today, and all the crowd singing his name, Kay, that it was a great day for him. He's had a lot of detractors, really, mentioning his form. But the fact that Gabriel Jesus has been injured and he's stepped in and he's done really, really well. And I was thrilled to bits for him, to be honest, for him to score 2 and be dangerous. And also the fact that he's playing in a really good Arsenal team means that it shows how good he is. I think if someone's playing in a struggling side, they're always going to look as if they're going to struggle. But suddenly you put him in a team that's absolutely firing and making chances. He will put himself in the right areas all the time. And I think his second goal, the winner, I think that shows everything. His realisation to be in that place and get the tap in, I think it was far more enjoyable than his first goal, which of course was a fantastic header. But the last one, the winner, is a typical poacher's goal, being in the right place at the right time, hoping that things will happen, and he got his rewards, and I'm made up for him, thrilled to bits, and he'll deserve all the highlights and all the credit that he's going to get in the morning.
Marco, it's been brilliant to have you on. Thank you so much, because we know you've got the Athletic Real Madrid commentary.
Looking forward. I hope that's as good a game, I tell you that.
So do we, mate. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you soon. We're going to bring Shaka Hislop in as well. He's actually around somewhere in the office. We're actually in the same office, we're just different rooms right now. We should probably sat together.
He's been taken hostage, Kay.
Right, Mark, you were at the game, so let's start with you. What did you make of it?
That was an amazing game, wasn't it? It was like the old kind of Man United Arsenal games of the last 20 years ago, the classic. So ultimately, Arsenal, I think, deserved the win. But I thought United showed a lot today that they're on the way back. But I just thought Arsenal had better possession. Nketiah, scored a crucial goal when it mattered. And Arsenal, they keep winning, don't they? I mean, this was in January, it would be the exit test. So they held it into the 0 against Newcastle, they beat Tottenham, they beat Man United. So passing every test. The other test left was Man City. So by that point, by the time we get to the City game, they might have enough of a cushion. It's a bit of freedom in case they lose that game. So for me, Arsenal are the favourites to go to win the title, because the City aren't convincing, but Arsenal's keep winning.
Yeah, I'm with Augie 100%, Kay, as we have said for a while. I think something that makes this Arsenal team so good is that they're resilient, even when they go down, even when the chips are against them. They're just trying to get a victory. Martin Odegaard, by the way, one of the transfers acquisitions, in recent memory for Arsenal, so important for them. Shaka Hislop, straight away, initial reactions. This is a massive win for them, don't you think?
It's a massive win, but a deserved one for Arsenal. And I have to say, I have to join the chorus of everybody who's been on. What an incredible game of football that was. Contrast that with Liverpool-Chelsea 24 hours ago. And it speaks to the quality of both of these teams. And in fairness, we will sing Arsenal's praises because they won the game. They got all 3 points. But I thought Manchester United played their part in what was certainly as good a game as I've seen for quite some time. Arsenal were deserved winners, though. And I don't think, though we're talking about Eddie Nketiah and a late goal to snatch all 3 points, I thought the way they finished, Arsenal were the more deserving of the two. I thought it was a fairly even first 45 minutes. And then as the second half went on and the changes were made, Anthony off, and having to bring Fred on, I just feel it more looked like Arsenal that Manchester United, as the game went on, were going to be more relying on the counter-attack. But Arsenal were prepared for that. They pressed high up the park. They didn't allow Manchester United, who are one of the best counter-attacking teams in the English game, if not world football, to really find those spaces. And that one close call, I guess we'd call it, with Rashford and Ramsdale apart, Manchester United didn't look like they'd find another. And then on to Eddie Nketiah. And I have to say this off the top. When Jesus went down injured and Arsenal were linked with João Felix, I said they had to get João Felix. That Eddie Nketiah was not the player that you could rely on between now and the end of the season to deliver a title. And I could not be more wrong. Eddie Nketiah has been everything that Arsenal has needed, to the point that it gives Arteta something to think about when Jesus is back fit. And that's all you can ask of your players, that they get themselves ready to give the manager an absolute headache. And Eddie Nketiah has been exactly that. Maka spoke about his winner, the poacher's instinct. But let's remember, he had a chance just before that brought an incredible save out of David De Gea as well. And Eddie Nketiah is proving to be the difference for this Arsenal team. The difference in that, as good as they were, and Marcus spoke about injuries, they got a big one to Jesus, but Eddie Nketiah has made it look anything but.
Preach, Shaka! Preach! Preach!
I know, don't worry, we'll be putting that one tomorrow to Janusz Mihajlik on PL Express, because he drives a hard bargain, does Janusz. He is a hard one to please when it comes to Nketiah. It's fair to say. We're going to chat Arsenal more. Don't worry about that, Arsenal fans. But just because we've got you here right now, Mark Ogden, let's get the United perspective today, because there were big questions about how they would fare without Casemiro. And we saw some really, really positive things once again from Manchester United, not least from Marcus Rashford.
We did. I think the Rashford is a positive, but I think it could also be a bit of a negative as well, because, we're talking about how Arsenal are going to cope with that Gabriel Jesus. I do worry how United cope with that Marcus Rashford. I do think they look like what they were today. They look like the third best team in the Premier League, and that is a positive and a negative, because I think there was a distance there between United and Arsenal today. And I think without Rashford, United don't really offer much. You take Rashford out of the equation, Anthony isn't offering enough. Weghorst is a different option, but hasn't got the pace to get away from the defender. You take Rashford out, what have they got to threaten teams? That would be the concern for me, that if he doesn't perform, and he did perform today, so if he doesn't perform, where do United go? And also, they couldn't win today with Rashford playing well. So, obviously, we're talking about Casemiro missing again. I thought McTominay did fine. I thought Fred came on, did well. I thought Martin was outstanding at the back. But I do think that United have had a great season, considering where they were at the start of the season, where they were last season. But this game today showed that they are still a little bit adrift with the big teams, the top teams, because they haven't got enough depth. And up front is where they lack the depth. They need somebody else apart from Rashford, and I don't think they're going to get it this month. So they're stuck with Weghorst, who, like I say, he offers something different. He works hard. He's better with his feet than people give him credit for. But he's not Harry Kane. He's not Erling Haaland, is he?
Yeah, there's something to be said about Manchester United and what they're doing so far under Erik ten Hag, specifically when Ronaldo left the club. And, Shaka said it earlier, United are so good on the counter now. They're learning the process under ten Hag. And they gave Arsenal a good fight. Though statistically speaking, Shaka, when you look at the numbers, Arsenal almost 60% possession, 25 shots to 7 of Manchester United. It was just a matter of finishing these chances. But you got to give credit to United, Shaka. How much more do you think, in fairness to what Oggie's saying, how much more do you think they need to do in order to not just, secure Europe, but Champions League and maybe the title once again?
Yeah, I'm with Oggie 100% in everything he said. Manchester United, let's be honest, the start of the season, if you're Mauricio Pochettino or his agent, you're kind of excited by how poorly Manchester United started under Ten Hag, and then everything just kind of came to a head with Ronaldo and that rather ridiculous, even more ridiculous now, Piers Morgan interview, and Ten Hag handled all those controversies incredibly well, to the point that I think the dressing room really started to buy into everything that he was selling. You couple that with Marcus Rashford being in the form of his career, coming back from the World Cup, and a United team playing with a sense of confidence. And I think this game summed it up. Yes, they were second best, and Oggie's right. Yes, they're third best in the league, but this is a far cry from the United that we'd seen. And if they continue to progress in this direction, it gives Manchester City and Arsenal, and if Chelsea are able to put things together and Liverpool somehow bounce back, it puts them back in a significant way in the conversations, to the point where right now, Oggie's right. You don't see Chelsea and Liverpool, even back at their best, surpassing them. So credit to Ten Hag, credit to Manchester United. They still have a way to go yet to catch these two, City and Arsenal, given the football that they're playing. But they are so far removed from how the season started.
Mark, before we do let you go, we're going to throw the conversation ahead, because we must talk about Manchester City as well. Obviously, we saw that Erling Haaland hat-trick today against Wolves. These two sides we're all waiting to see play this season. Those two Premier League meetings are still to come. They're going to meet in the Cup first before that. What's your feeling? What's your gut telling you between these two teams come the end of the season?
I think City, I'm saying they got the greater depth, but I do think that Arsenal have built up such an advantage that I think that gives them a cushion. I think City have to win both games. I think they also play next game, haven't they? So City have to win both games, and Arsenal drop even more points. Now we've got to the halfway stage of the season, 19 games, 50 points. So if Arsenal end up with 90 points, that'll probably win the league. So to me, that means they can drop 10 more points. So Arsenal have got a real cushion. City got it all to do. We've seen City in the past; they can go 17, 18 games, not with that defeat, but win every game. And they have got that in them. But they haven't shown it this season. They've still got that ability. So that would be the big worry for Arsenal, that if City get on a run, Arsenal have to be as good as they've been for the first half of the season. But, Arsenal keep passing the test, like I say, and I don't see anybody other than City stopping Arsenal or beating Arsenal. So it really lies on those games. I think the first game is it the Etihad, I think, next month? That's a massive, massive game. City have to win that game. And if they win that game, that might chip away Arsenal's confidence, but I still think Arsenal favourites now. I think City got it all to do. I think City have to win 16, 17 games on the bank.
Well, I'll tell you what, Oggy, I think we have to say goodbye to you because I feel like I think that's Rob Dawson in the background just going nuts about United. But we'll let you go, Oggy. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Make sure that you get home safe, buddy. Let's
Cheers, guys.
Exit out, sub out Mark Ogden, and bring in somebody that's going to be very happy right now. Look at him. He's already smiling.
I'm a super fan.
Absolutely. Dalen, I'm surprised you're not wearing your Arsenal shirt right now. How happy are you right now after that win against Manchester United?
Yeah, LME, you pointed out right away, I'm wearing the wrong gear, but who the hell cares? That was an outstanding game of football and a huge win, to say the least. I do want to let you guys know I'm sacrificing for you. To watch Arsenal without a beverage in hand and to try to stay sober through these games is not the easiest thing. But you guys have mentioned a couple times how this match looked like it did, 20 years ago in the 90s, early 2000s. But what I kind of thought late in that game, it was on the 82nd, 83rd minute as I looked up. I used to always think Alex Ferguson's United teams, they were just going to win the game. They were going to find a way to win, and they almost always did. That's how I felt about Arsenal for the first time in a very long time. As I'm watching that game, I was like, I feel like they're just going to win. If they're at home, they're playing better, they're on the front foot, this incessant pressure. At some point, United's going to cave, and they're going to win this game. And to walk away with those 3 points was absolutely massive. And last but not least, I just saw this on the coverage that through 19 games, the Invincibles crew in 03-04 had 5 less points than this group does through 19 games. The pace they're on is pretty electric when you look at the history and where they've been, especially in recent years. So a lot to be excited about, to say the least, and I don't care what color my shirt is.
Oh, we don't either. It's just great to have you here. You know what? You mentioned the Invincibles, and I wanted to put this one to you, Shaka, because in all this talk, we've not even talked about Bukayo Saka today. He got his 8th of the season. He's only the 3rd Arsenal player to score in 3 successive Premier League games against Manchester United since Freddie Ljungberg and Thierry Henry. I mean, that's some company to be keeping, isn't it?
It really is, and you look at the goal that he scored, and it was an exceptional finish. I think there are questions about Christian Eriksen, but that's not doing Bukayo Saka enough justice, or Sidney the goal enough justice. And Eriksen just sits off of Saka. And to be fair, if you're Eriksen, the last person, well, maybe again, there's quite a few candidates for this, but you don't want to catch yourself one-on-one Bukayo Saka, because he can just drift by you, but then you stand off of him. And what I think Saka does wonderfully well is use Eriksen as a little bit of a screen. So De Gea doesn't see the shot coming until very late. And that's a level of maturity. That's a level of understanding exactly where you are on the park that you don't associate with someone as new, and I'm saying this kindly, someone as new in the game as Bukayo Saka. That's Thierry Henry-esque. So I thought he did that wonderfully well. Knowing that Eriksen can't get close, he just shifts the ball into the right position to give David De Gea, leave him unsighted and able to react late. If I can just go back to something that Mark was talking about, and it's about City and about this title running. If Arsenal win their game in hand, it goes back to 8 points. And as much as you have City to come twice, at this point, even if City win those 2 games, that closes the gap to 2. But who beats Arsenal? And while you can say the exact same about City, and you saw City at their best against Wolves, City at their best, which we haven't seen for a very long time, who beats Arsenal? That was Arsenal, and as much as the score was 3-2, dominating against the third best team in the league. We saw Arsenal in the North London derby. We wondered how they would fare. No problem at all. And to be honest, against arguably right now the fourth best team in the league, in Newcastle United, Arsenal dominated throughout. And even as a former Newcastle player, I'm like Dalen here. I thought it was only a matter of time. Even that one, that Arsenal would score, held out. So now you look at how Arsenal have fared against the third, fourth, and fifth best teams in the league, dominated throughout. And you can ask, even if they lose twice to City, who gets the better of them? And I'm not sure that there's anybody who you can, with any kind of conviction, say so. That's not to say that I think Arsenal win all the remaining games, but it's just to say that you're not quite sure where that stumbling block is going to come.
Shaka, very interesting this final comment from you, because we just so happen to have, aside from being a super Arsenal fan, super fan number one, Dalen Cuff is also a gambling expert. And last time you were here, Dalen, we were talking about the Premier League odds, and obviously it doesn't really favor so much the odds maker or the odds putter, I guess, if Arsenal keep on winning. But where is it smart money to put something now in Arsenal? Are there any other things that you're looking at from an odds perspective in the title race in the Premier League and anywhere else?
Well, actually, what Shaka just said is going to be critical to the odds, because if they don't win this game and that game is a draw and it's just a 6-point deficit, technically, from the odds maker's perspective, you can look at City and say, okay, City wins both games. They are now level on points. That changes the odds rather significantly. So I'm still waiting. I'm refreshing. We haven't seen them come out from Caesar Sportsbook, who we use here at ESPN. And I've looked at other books. So just to see where they reset the lines. But I imagine they'll be very similar to they were when we get into this weekend, which was Arsenal around -120 on a lot of books, and Man City around +120, +130, which is more than 1-to-1 your money. Arsenal right now is less than 1-to-1 your money. And we talked last week about really this cup game they're going to play this week is not going to affect the odds. What's going to affect the odds is just the table and the numbers as these games come forward. So right now, I would still wait. Like I said last week, I put +250 on Arsenal about in December that they were going to win this thing. That was good value, 2.5 times your money. Now you're down to less than 1-to-1. I would wait and see, because if City does win the game, it's going to the first match on the 15th of February. Those numbers are going to tighten up. They may even flip a little bit. Depends on the odds makers, because they've always had City as the favorite. That's who odds makers think are still going to win this thing if it gets tight. So I think you may actually see Arsenal go back to plus money if they lose that first match on the 15th. So I wouldn't put money on that right now. I think there is interesting money within the top four race between Spurs, Newcastle, and those guys, and that mix right there. I think you can look at those 2 or 3 teams and think there might be some value in those teams and who can hold on, who can get in the top 4. The last thing I thought was really strange, especially coming off that Chelsea-Liverpool game, and a couple of folks have mentioned it already, in contrast how poor that game was yesterday versus today, is Liverpool is still 2-1 to get into the top 4. That is a terrible bet to me. I don't understand how that's possible. With the way United's playing, as we just talked about, Newcastle and Spurs are in better position. For them to get in the top 4, the way they're in their form right now, I would never lay that money. So I know there's a lot of Reds fans on here. You may want that team to turn it around. That seems like an insane bet to me, and I don't understand the value. Compare that to Chelsea right now is 8-1 to get in the top 4. That makes more sense to me. That is a very long play that you shouldn't play either. So right now, as far as the title odds, I would wait and see again how things play out here. But the top 4 race remains interesting with United, Newcastle, and the crew that they're battling right now at Spurs.
You're getting 2 for 1 here right now.
Hello! Yes! This is the first time Dan and I are meeting, so digitally, Dan. It's a pleasure, my friend. But, well, I have been stalking you forever on Twitter. And it's not fair. So, yes, on purpose. I know.
I tell you what, some behind the scenes here. Kay's got her shoes off. And man, these honk. Oh my goodness, me! If it was a smell of it, should be in trouble.
I just got you wine gums today.
You did get me wine gums. So you felt it, Dalen cuffs on, as he mentioned. You mentioned Ivy League school. That's the first thing he said.
At least I'm repping the color. Yeah. Dan loves to bring it up. Here you go. Where we at? There you go. Our basketball team sucks.
What thoughts today on the game?
Well, it was funny because Arsenal won, obviously, so that's even better for my bet with Stevie. and Lisandro Martinez scored, and Stevie says he's too short to play football, and he scored with his head. So it's just ammunition to fire yet again at Stevie, I reckon.
Yeah, just brilliant stuff as well that we saw. We're just talking the odds there, Dalen, and
he doesn't know what he's talking about, the odds.
Dan-
Look at him. He doesn't know what's going on. I've got to go.
He's got to go and actually do his job.
K Murray, we cannot allow this again. It's Dan Troll Thomas
We're going to
number
get
one.
Danny when we can, haven't we?
I know, but he's trolling all of us.
It comes and just sprays strays everywhere, and they get the hell
Shots everywhere.
No, Dan loves it. Dan used to work in the bookies though, so he loves hearing all the odds and everything. I was interested on the Newcastle side of things as well, Dalen, there, because with everything that we've been seeing from them, and obviously with Shaka Hislop on, it's good to know what people think of them and when it comes to the title odds too. But Shaka, let's go back to this game and just focus a little bit on it. I wanted to put this to you because I thought it was very interesting. Arsenal have scored 13 goals in the first 15 minutes of a second half, which is more than any other Premier League team this season. What does that tell us about Mikel Arteta's halftime team talks?
It tells us that Arteta is identifying weaknesses in teams in the first 45 minutes and is making the adjustments to suit. Now, you can scout teams all you like, and you can have the full week to build up to games and have a game plan. But there's no substitution for seeing that team up against your team, up against your individuals, recognizing who's having a good game, who may not be having a good game. Telling players like Bukayo Saka, when you get one-on-one with Christian Eriksen, he can't get close to you. Or if he does, here's just blow by. Identifying those mismatches and how to find those mismatches. And I think it speaks to Arteta, how he's matured as a coach, how he's getting his messages across to the team, and how they're responding. And again, we are talking about a Mikel Arteta who, at the start of last season, was, if we are talking odds and bookies here, a lot of people had odds on him losing his job at the start of last season. And now all of a sudden we are talking about a player who's let's be honest, who's favorite to win Manager of the Year this year in the Premier League.
On that note, too, I think, Shaka, there's something to be said for sticking with the guy. They had a lot of problems organizationally. They had problems with their transfer policy. Some guys they were bringing in before, and allowing to have time to build this thing out. And that they've reaped the benefits of that patience. That said, today was, I think, a big adjustment to put Tomiyasu in for Ben White, because White, he had a couple giveaways in the first half. He looked a little bit off, and that was the biggest concern in that game, was when they had those moments of transition, and obviously Rashford scored on one of them. That's how they're going to score. And then you can't have those bad giveaways. I thought Tomiyasu was pretty busy once he came on. So even identifying that in this match was just a simple, adjustment that had to be made at that moment. I think helped them.
I'll tell you what we have got from LME today, guys. If you're a regular follower of our ESPNFC YouTube page, you'll have seen his Take a Deto's, where he gives us a hot take, maybe something that's a little bit out there, maybe something that's pretty firm, a belief that he has. He puts it out there on Take a Deto, and he usually defends why. Today, he's going to bring it into the show here. Luis, what have you got for us?
Well, I don't think I'm going to have to defend too harshly here because of just everything that I've been hearing from Shaka and Dalen and you and everybody chiming in. But it's 3-1, okay, Murray, and it's part of it an apology based on what Dalen literally just said. When Mikel Arteta took over this club, I actually was very hesitant about it, to the point where, obviously after that rough period, I said that, they should fire him. That's literally what I said. Well, guess what? My Take a Dito today says this. Even including Napoli, who are doing amazing in Serie A, to me, right now, Arsenal are the best team in Europe. Mikel Arteta is the best manager in Europe. And I think that this run, and it's supported by what Dalen said earlier, this run, to me, what's happening with this squad, with the likes of Bukayo Saka and Nketiah after Gabriel Jesus' injury, the fact that new additions had to come in, including the likes of Ben White, Aaron Ramsdale, that gambled so much money, Tomiyasu, getting to know the Premier League, etc. Thomas Partey, we didn't know what was going to go with him. I think that this run right now, when they win the Premier League, it'll be more impressive than the Invincibles.
All right, so the take is, if they win this Premier League, it's going to be more impressive than what the Invincibles did. Shaka.
it's going to be impressive, but I'm not sure it surpasses what the Invincibles did. And I played against that Invincibles team. I played against them that season. Another story. We should have beat them at Highbury as it was at the time, but I'm going on.
You don't want to go back.
That maybe I shouldn't. So I'll just kind of jump back off there. But
you're not bitter. You never think about it, right?
No. I'm not the kind of guy that carries around a 17-year grudge at all. But to that point, no. If Arsenal go ahead and win it, impressive without question. But I don't put it above that 2000. What year? No, that was 2003 and 4. 2003, 2004. Yeah, I don't put it above that season.
Well, the thing, I mean, I'm not going to argue with that too, because obviously playing against the team is a different experience. But I think the organizational piece, I think Arsenal the year before that finished second to United in the table, and there was an expectation that team had talent and had all the pieces. I don't think you rewind a year and a half ago, we didn't think that. And I think that's where a little bit of what LME is saying there we have to credit organization, Edu, and the other guys that went out in this transfer policy of getting, you mentioned Ramsdale, you mentioned Ben White, they got Tomiyasu, they bring in Zinchenko was a huge addition. Obviously, Gabriel Jesus has been big this year and will be again. So from an organizational standpoint, and let's be real, a lot of us fans, when we got Ramsdale and White, I was like, this is way too much money for the guys you're getting here. It's the age of them. They're getting young guys that they're going to think are going to grow into their prime in the club. They're willing to pay a little bit of a premium for that, but they also fit the system and fit the system well. And that shows organizational synergy that, Lord knows, a couple years ago, it just seemed like a complete mess. So the fact that they've gotten to this place in relatively short order, I think is tremendously impressive. So organizationally, I think I would be a little more impressed and surprised what they've done this year relative to what happened in 03-04.
Yeah, So I was just gonna add, Kate, just one final thing. Whether you agree with the take or not, and obviously I'm gonna get yelled at left, right, and center. I think that the key point here is that from where Mikel Arteta started to where he is now with this squad, this very young squad, if they're able to win this thing, if they're able to do it, and at the same time be successful in Europe, to me, that is such a remarkable objective that has been achieved by a young manager who has kept on going and going despite all adversity. It's tremendous stuff.
Well, that's where I wanted to end it as well, perfectly with Dalen, Arteta watch, and what you made of him today and what you make of him and his antics on the sidelines, Dalen. We're fans of it here. We have to let you know, me and LME. Wonder what you think of him.
I love him. I loved him as a player, and I like him. I love him as a manager. Now, sometimes he's going a little too nuts on the sideline. I'd like to have some composure, especially with a young team. But you also don't want to tell a manager or a coach to not be who they are. So that comes through every single day. And today he got a yellow card, and that's no surprise either. But his ability to be kind of steadfast, and I think that Aubameyang situation last year was kind of like him taking the reins and saying, "This is my club," because he held fast. I mean, there were a lot of managers and a lot of clubs that would have caved to their stars' desires and chosen him and their leading goal scorer and their highest paid player, I believe at the time, over a manager that was in struggle and had some problems and had some issues and had some questions from fans and within the organization. But he stayed steadfast in his belief that this is the right way to go, that we part ways. It's addition by subtraction. He was right then, and I think he kind of guided that group forward to the point where we thought they were going to be a top 4 team. They go through that adversity and that collapse, which was hard for all of us to watch. But to see where they started this year and the belief in the way in which they play, week in and week out, the consistency from a young group that we said last week, they have not really faced true adversity yet, and that is going to happen at some point in time if they're going to win this cup. Or win this title, but we'll see that when it comes and how they respond to it. But by and large, they've passed every test that's been thrown at them, and Arteta's been critical in that leadership.
Yep. Okay. Well, it's been brilliant to have you, Arsenal superfan Dalen Cuff, but make sure next time you come into this show you're wearing red, all right?
I'm wearing red, but I will be sober. Not for long.
Thanks so much for being with us. Listen, Shaka, before we end today's show, we just want to talk about the fact you're probably glad you're not playing in the Premier League anymore with what Erling Haaland's been doing this season.
Yeah, it's scary. That's what his 4th hat-trick so far this season. There are strikers who are lauded for their contributions to the game who might have 4 career hat-tricks. We're talking about Erling Haaland, who's had 4 in. Have we got half a season? It's absolutely ridiculous. And I thought you heard some criticism, if you can call it that, from Pep Guardiola around his team mainly. and one of them being saying to Erling Haaland, don't drop deep to get on the ball. We have one runner in this team, and that's you. Stay up, stretch defenses. That gives midfielders more space to pick a pass, for them to work their magic. We want you to play on the shoulders of defenders and give them headaches. And that's exactly what Erling Haaland did for the next 2 games. And you show exactly how good a finisher he is yet again. The issue with playing up against Haaland is I don't think he's got a weak spot about him. He's quick, he's physical, he's strong, 2 good feet, he can jump in the air. And while it's always dangerous to draw comparisons with previous great players, we were just talking about the Invincibles of Arsenal. Thierry Henry, as good as he was, he wouldn't get into physical fights with defenders. So if you wanted to get the best and better of Thierry Henry, you would have to get really physical with him. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to stop him from scoring. It just means you give him something else to think about. You don't want to get in a physical fight with Erling Haaland. What do you do to put him off his game? And that is why I think he is kind of the worst of the worst players to play against. If he's on your team, he gives you every option there is to find the back of the net.
Yeah, because on top of all of that, we know he's totally zen as well. As Shaka was saying, got more goals than 9 Premier League teams this season. Luis, what are the chances of him going down as the Premier League's best striker ever?
Very good chances. Very good chances for all the reasons that Shaka just said, for all the stats that you have said. I mean, the fact that he has 25 goals in the Premier League and it's January. The Golden Boot winners last season was Salah and Son with 23. He has 25 already. And Shaka said it perfectly. I have never seen a striker like this in the Premier League. And okay, yourself, myself, and obviously we watched Shaka play in the 90s, the likes of Thierry Henry, my good friend Alan Shearer, all these amazing strikers that did so much for the game. I have never seen somebody like Erling Haaland. To me, he's like, the Terminator or a Transformer. He's part human, part android. He can do anything. Score in the air. He's quick. He's strong. And actually, I feel like I wish he played for another team, because you probably would see even more from Erling Haaland, because sometimes he gets lost in the game just because Pep Guardiola's system likes to be possession-based. Kevin De Bruyne's assistant, Jack Grealish from one wing, Riyad Mahrez, obviously not taking anything away from his productivity with Man City. But I would love to see it with another team, because then on the regular, K, you would see just what the type of player that he is. He is phenomenal. 25 goals in the Premier League, and it's not even February. It's just beyond belief.
What do you reckon about that one, Shaka, on where he's going to go down in history? Let's just be honest, though. He hasn't got the consistent one arm up in the air, goal-scoring celebration. Your old mate, Alan Shearer, every time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, again, it's always dangerous to draw those comparisons. And the one difference between Erling Haaland and Alan Shearer is I think Haaland has got more pace, considerably more pace, if I may say so.
Definitely.
Than Alan Shearer. Alan Shearer is another one that you did not want to get in a physical fight with. Had all the tools that Erling Haaland does, but for the pace. The one thing that we know about Alan Shearer is, and I witnessed this firsthand, he suffered some horrific injuries during the course of his career. And he was able to get himself not just back, but back to his best. Now, you wish injuries on absolutely no one. Let me be clear about that. But if Erling Haaland were to suffer the kind of injuries that Alan Shearer did, would he be able to respond? Would he be able to rebound? Of course, that's a question that you can only answer were it to happen, and you don't wish it happening to anyone. But while we talk about Alan Shearer, who I think is still the Premier League's leading record goal scorer, you always have to put that into the context of, despite those numbers, the injuries that he suffered would have ended many a career, yet he came back from. So there's always that context, and for people like me, there's always that bias.
And we love having people like you on here, Shaka. It's been absolutely brilliant to have you join us again. Louise and me will be back to do it all again soon, but make sure to be with us tomorrow. Don't worry, I'll be giving Janusz Mihajlik a bit of stick about Nketiah on PLX coming up in the morning here on our ESPNFC YouTube page. Thank you so much for being with us for the latest edition.